Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Zach Celadonia.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and sitting right over here to my side with a little grin on his face, a little later Monday morning quarterback, even though those Steelers didn't have a Sunday game. Zach Flash Celadonia. Hey, Zach, how's it going, man? Get to do a little bit of things differently on the weekend when you don't have to invest your time with the Steelers, right?
Yeah, you get to live free and not have to worry about them losing.
Wait a
no
minute.
Heart attacks.
Let me cut in on that. Did you see the game last night? Jimmy Garoppolo stepped out of bounds with the safety.
Hey,
Dan Orlovsky, he had that tweet, like, saved in his drafts forever. Freedom. So when you said that, it immediately popped into my head because now people aren't going to remember that. They're going to remember that and the butt punt or whatever it was.
Yeah, taking the place of the butt fumble. I know we had two moments in history repeat themselves last night. I don't care what Orlovsky says. His was way worse because he ran out of the back of the end zone. Jimmy's was a little bit of a mental lapse, in which it saved him from the pick six. So his wasn't like all bad. It was bad, but Orlovsky, he's still the king of the running out of bounds.
Yeah, he sure is. Just the things that happen. And you look at, let me tell you something. I'm watching the Broncos, and they made all that big trade and all this money invested in Russell Wilson. And I understand they're 2-1. Kind of like by the skin of their teeth. You can't feel really good if you're like one of their fans. And it's likewise, it's still early. The same thing with, Steelers fans. And we're talking about what can they do? Is the season already over? TJ is out for a little bit of a more extended period of time. They're not able to get a pass rush. There's still people who believe the offensive line isn't any good. And we could talk about that. But we couldn't go much further into the show by trying to maybe deny or say otherwise that perhaps this will be the Mitch Trubisky show today. And as to whether or not good old Mitch, Mr. Biscuit, whatever you want to call him, how much of a leash do the Pittsburgh Steelers have on him going forward?
Right now, it feels like it stretches around the earth twice because I don't know what more has to happen for the Steelers not to want to play Kenny Pickett. At this point, I think it's more of, I love Mike Tomlin. I've been called an apologist, a lover, you name it, like both in friendly conversation and both when people are trying to argue with me. And I think he's a great coach, but he is a very, very prideful man. And I part of me, it hates that I think this, but I don't think the fact that all of the TV networks and radio stations and fans, obviously, are on the you need to put Kenny Pickett out there train. It feels satisfying. Don't get me wrong. It's great that people are coming around and coming to their senses. I love that part. But the rush and the movement that is coming from all angles at Tomlin to start Kenny Pickett, I think it's making him even more resistant to play him because he doesn't want to look like it's fan league controlled football out there. He wants to still have control of the locker room and the situation. Although that in itself, I almost feel like you could lose control of the locker room if you don't turn to the better quarterback soon. And I don't think Tomlin's ever been in jeopardy of that, ever. He's a player's coach, and former players, current, they rave about Tomlin and everything that he's done and accomplished, and I'm on their side. But there is something to these people who have been saying the receivers, their shoulders are slumped, they look less enthused. It's part of why making the catches in harder situations late in the game is becoming more difficult for them because their head is escaping the game. I think it's all collapsing around the Steelers. It's all coming down, and there's multiple people to blame. There's multiple support beams that are coming down, that are crumbling. It isn't just Mitch, but he is a large factor in why the Steelers are playing so bad and why they can't win games anymore. Is it early? Yeah. But you only get 17 games. I mean, the Broncos, dude, they really stink, huh?
I don't understand that at all.
Dude.
Yeah.
They beat the 49ers in the last closing minutes of last night, and the Niners really aren't a good team. when you break it all down. I thought they'd be better, but they're kind of in this limbo too, where it's like, they kind of have a quarterback, kind of don't. Well, they have defensive pieces. Sometimes they can run the ball. They got a good coach. Kind of sound like us. So,
with the exception of Nathaniel Hackett in Denver, we don't know. He had to hire. Imagine having. I think I mentioned this once before already. Imagine having to hire like some quality control assistant just because you need help making decisions. That doesn't sound good for a first year NFL head coach.
I know there's recognizing the problem, and then there's like, all right, man, maybe you jump the gun on that because it kind of makes you look bad. Both the Broncos and Hackett. If like you were brought in to be, he's supposed to be a smart guy too, which is not coming to fruition so far. And the fact that he had to bring in a clock management guy, some people could say Tomlin could use that, but Tomlin, he's been here for however long. Hackett's fresh on the job, so yeah, that is where we are not the same. We're in different lanes than the Broncos, for sure. Shanahan's a pretty good coach, but he's still young in the game.
Yeah, and as far as the clock, a lot of things are hindsight, is 2020, and that'll happen. You'll look back and, you could have done this a different way, or why did you do this? There's certain things in situations where Tomlin doesn't get credit for the way he handles the clock. It's almost always a loss, let's face it. And that's where I'm going is, what kind of changes can the Steelers make to improve things? If you're going to say the offense is bad, are you on board with like fire Matt Canada crowd? You got to install a new playbook, and we know how that is. You see quarterbacks that jump in just too late, don't have a grasp of the playbook, et cetera, and it just never works out very well that way. More than likely, and I don't have a problem with the play calls so far for the most part this season. Somebody was yelling about like 3rd and 2 on Thursday night, and that's when everybody's loading up in the box, and this one actually wasn't Mitch's fault. This was Deontay went right through the breadbasket. This was the right play, dialed up at the right time, and just not executed by all pieces. And there is some panic here because it's 1 and 2. It's not like you're 0 and 3. It's not like you're 1 and 4, which is maybe where they're headed, is somewhere in that direction, which we kind of all in the preseason were already kind of saying this. And we're thinking, well, they get to the bye and some of the games. We're going to look at the schedule here. And you see, where is there winnable games on the schedule? Where can you insert Kenny Pickett? And I had an Elton John song in my head this morning. And it just pops. I don't know if you can figure out which one it is, but it's, she's got electric boots, a mohair suit. I can't do Elton any justice, and I can't play it because YouTube will find me or something for it. So, but
I'm not exactly up to speed on all my Elton John tunes. Very talented individual, but
it's going to be
not the biggest.
Kenny and the Jets. That's what I want to see.
Oh, hell yeah. That's him. Right on. I love that song.
Yeah, Benny and the Jets, man. Yeah, good old Sir Elton. It was just at PNC not too long ago too, last few weeks ago or whatever, doing a little bit of his little farewell tour. We need him to come in and give Mike a little bit of a push. It's still early in the week. We don't know. Mike Tomlin's not going to tell somebody whether or not he's going to make a move at quarterback first thing, first thing after the game. And we've been Kenny stands, and I'm going to have to go through some reasons why. I've got a boatload of statistics, and I know you and I were neck and neck, heated, nose to nose, mano a mano over this in the offseason. I still have my Trubisky spreadsheet here from pre-Pittsburgh. So let me go through a couple of items here on the list. I have 46 games in which Mitchell Trubisky has attempted at least 20 passes. Okay, so let's talk about yards in a game. What can the quarterback do for you? For 300-yard passing games, he has 7 out of 46 games when he was with the Chicago Bears. 7.
Not a lot.
No, that's not a lot. You could throw 297 in there and try and make it 8, okay? Now, if we go sub 200, out of 46, you have 18 games where he has thrown fewer than 200 yards in a game. And maybe he gets, I don't know, I can't even say he gets banged up or whatever. He's got 34, 33 attempts, 30, 43 with a 55.8 completion percentage. You could also toss, what did I say the number was there? 18? You could toss, he had a 200, a 202, and a 207. You could almost throw 3 more in there. 21 of 46. That's not going to cut it unless you got a bunch of turnovers and things where the defense is assisting you and aiding you. Now, at
That's what we've seen so far too. That right around that like 205 and under mark for Mitch. I think he just broke 200 last game for the first time. Is that not right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. You know what? I have it up too, and it wasn't by much. 207.
205.
Yeah,
Good.
207. Exactly 207, 20 of 32, 62 and a half. And, from that last drive at the end of the first half all the way through the end of the game was just like miserable. He was like 50% completion percentage and just
Yeah.
in the dumps. It was awful. It's miserable. And you can have a bad game here or there, but you're to the point where I think well, let me go through the rest of these stats. It's you know where his ceiling is, and his ceiling is, and he's ever going to throw for 300 yards and multiple TDs in a game. 2 touchdown games of those 46, he has 7. 2 touchdown games, 7. He has.
Sounds like my grades in high school.
I was a little bit better than that, but I'm not the brag or anything. Now, my freshman year in college. Let's
My
not go
freshman
there.
year was my last year.
Let's put it this way. We're talking about kicking Mitch over off the bench, kind of. That's where I was headed with the deans and stuff in college. But the 7 games with 2 touchdowns, 9 with 3. He's got the one aberration here with 6 with 354 yards. They blew out like Tampa 48-10. There was like 6-7 defensive turnovers in that game. This is Tampa pre-Tom Brady era, mind you. So of all those tallied, he's got 17 of 46 games with 2 or more touchdown passes, and only 10 of 46 where he has 3 or more. The meat of this is 15 games with only a single touchdown pass, and then another 14 with no touchdown passes. 14 of 46, about a quarter of it. And if you want to go even more, maybe a half, 29 games, 1 or fewer touchdown passes. 15 touchdown passes total in those 29 games. 15 in 29 games to 24 interceptions in those same 29 games. 15 to 24 TD to INT ratio. This is why I'm advocating for the change and the change now. This is not change. This is 3 games. How many more games do we need to go to figure out if Mitch Trubisky can turn the ship around or be a different player? Well, let me tell you, Zach. We start with the Jets on Sunday. If you can't right the ship against the Jets, it doesn't look any prettier when you go to Buffalo, when you host Tampa Bay. You got the Dolphins on the road for Sunday Night Football, and you got the Eagles on the road right after that, back-to-back home games before the bye week.
Dolphins and the Eagles, 2 hottest teams in the league right now.
Yeah. I was going to say, do you see?
Sounds like a joke. I'm not joking at all. It's a serious statement on my part.
Yeah, very serious statement. Where's the win? Where's the win at other than the Jets, maybe with Mitchell Trubisky versus you have the unknown. You might get a little bit of an upstart or a spark with Kenny Pickett. And hey, if Kenny Pickett's not the guy or he struggles, what's the harm in getting him some experience so maybe he could be the guy, or you at least know you got to go get another guy? Because I'm telling you, man, I'm done. Trubisky isn't it.
Dude, what's the harm? That's so right. What's the harm? I already know it's coming. I can see the storm coming where people are going to say, you see that lineup of games and you want to put Kenny Pickett out there? Dude, yes, this is why he was drafted. He's an NFL player. He's a man, okay? He's 40. He's not really 40. That's a shout out to the Mike Gundy interview. But he needs to be put on the field, dude. You can't coddle this kid. And I say kid very loosely. He's 24 years old. And this is something nobody's thinking about, okay? We're 1-2 right now. Yeah, if they don't start Kenny and we go 1-3 and then 1-4, dude, you're digging the hole too deep for Kenny to come in and dig us out of. And I'll say it. Yes, there's this like hope and belief that Kenny can come in and right the ship and do better with this offense. That expectation should be out there. It's why he was this year's first round pick. And he's shown it with his opportunities on the field that he can steer this offense into the light and he can play well under pressure, better than Mitch has displayed. And that is what I'm concerned about. Is now it's like, dude, come on. We're already 1-2. Mitch hasn't looked good in any of the games. I know that there was the last minute drive versus the Bengals, and there was the first half last game versus versus the Browns. That's really been it. That's all we've seen good play-wise out of Mitch Trubisky. So that's 3 games down, and I was willing to give Mitch the chance and the opportunity when he came in here. I believed that a year off of the field, kind of taking a step back behind Josh Allen in Buffalo, gave him an opportunity to see the game in a different light. It hopefully provided an experience where he would feel no pressure, thought he felt no pressure in Buffalo, and could just learn and take his time and then apply those lessons learned the next year wherever he would be. So happens to be the Steelers. And after 3 games, I don't know how you can reason with the other coaches on staff, with the fans, with whoever's making the call here, that we're going to get anything different. These 3 games have been a microcosm of exactly what you read off there, all those stats. He has been a game manager at best and then bad. There's been no like, oh man, like Mitch is tearing it up here. Like, oh, he's looking really good. I said this and came off as a hater during halftime of the Browns game when everybody was singing Mitch's everybody was singing Mitch's praises, pardon me, trying to say like, oh, maybe he's not that bad, maybe this, maybe that. I said, I want everybody to realize that what we are congratulating and what we are celebrating over here are very routine plays that Trubisky was making in the first half, bailed out by a George Pickens one-handed catch. So I wasn't over the moon excited with what Mitch put on the field way back in the first half versus Cleveland. And then second half comes and boom, look at that. He's back to Trubisky. And I thought, okay, Steelers don't want to make the switch now. All right, he put a good first half on tape, a managed first half on tape. Let's see what happens versus the Patriots. Boom, terrible game. All right, that should be enough to turn to Kenny Pickett unless you, as the Steelers, and I can't believe they would ever do this or consider this, unless you guys really don't give a shit about the season. If you really are just like letting it play out no matter what, then and you're battling for draft position, they would never tank, but you can't consciously keep putting the worst of the 2 quarterbacks out there and not having the best players on the field to win the game as a professional football team unless there's some kind of plan here. And there doesn't seem to be a plan. The Steelers would never be a team to tank. They would never be a team to just be like, well, this season's a wash. Let's not worry about it. I feel like they would and should want to win. And I don't think it's ridiculous to imply that the easiest fix is changing up the quarterback. Because here's the thing about Canada sucking, Mitch sucking, and Deontay Johnson having a bad game with the drop the other game. You can't change Canada right now. You can't. You can fire him, and then what's going to happen is they're going to bring up Mike Sullivan, who's already in-house. He's the quarterback coach, not the Penguins coach. Or they'll go to the street where God knows who's out there, and that's going to be the replacement. It's not going to be good. And they're not going to bench Deontay Johnson. So what is the reasonable solution of the 3 presented problems that I present to you? It is changing the quarterback because there's a better one in-house ready to go. And the Jets are a perfect opportunity to put him out there because, yeah, they're the worst team we're going to see in a while. They're not a good team. They're starting Joe Flacco, who's perfect for this defense, who's struggling to get to the quarterback right now, rushing the passer. Flacco's a statue. He's got concrete boots. So they should be able to put some life back into their pass.
Hopefully it's Flacco. There is talk as to Zach Wilson could be back, and he's got to rush back after not playing. So it's still the same. A lot of the same things still apply. He's just a little less in the lead in the boots there.
Yeah, he's an athlete. I think it'd be incredibly stupid for the Jets to put him out there. I actually am worried about Wilson. Like, they should just, man, I don't know if they can do this, but go to the doctor and be like, dude, just tear it and then give me a surgery. Because if there's like a minor tear in it, if he's like that tweaked that they're like going back and forth on what the injury is, what it isn't, that knee of Zach Wilson's a ticking time bomb. I would not be comfortable if I were him going out there. I don't think it's as bad as the RG3 thing from like 2012, but it's like a notch below that. Like that knee's gonna blow, and I don't think they should put him out there. And if it is him, though, yeah, he'll be playing on one leg. So this is the perfect opportunity to put Kenny out there because the defense is going to be humming around. They're going to be playing a sitting duck at quarterback, whoever it is. So they're going to be playing better than they have been, I think. So you're going to have more to lean on all around Kenny than instead just like, okay, now we got this lackluster defense without TJ Watt. Our offense is sputtering out. Like all these things that you can't fix right now, you can fix if you put Kenny Pickett out there, or at least try to. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. That it can't hurt trying to put Kenny Pickett out there right now.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you on all of that. And just look, you want to put him on. You're not, for all intents and purposes, when we're looking at this schedule, and you scroll all the way down. You're down here at the Jets, and you go to Buffalo. You're not going to put them in. Are you going to put them in during that week and install them to go play at Buffalo? Are you going to put them against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home after Buffalo? I mean, possible, but I don't think you're going to set them up to play at Miami or at Philadelphia in either case there. I don't think that's going to end up happening either. And then you have
those
the bye
are rough
week.
environments for different reasons. You got the weather in Miami, and then you got the fans in Philly.
Yeah, and the Steelers haven't won in Philadelphia in like 100 years or something. They don't play it too often there, but just often enough that I think the streak is like 35 years now. I think it was 33 a couple of years ago when they last lost. They have like no luck whatsoever playing in Philadelphia. And just look at, let me bring up Mitch's stuff, more Mitch stuff, right? And I don't know, you might not be able to see this too strong. I hate Pro Football Reference, just doesn't blow up well on the screen, but first 3 games, so far he's 62 of 103, just barely 60% completed, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 569 yards, and he's taken 5 sacks. His yards
we
per
played the
attempt.
Browns last. That's right. Okay.
Yep.
I definitely messed that up there. Playing Thursday night has me all thrown off. I was like, what game was most recently? The Patriots or the Browns game? But
Yeah, no.
Okay,
I
cool.
understand what you mean there. I think most people do. It's like you get in this fog. You know what I mean? Like I'm definitely in the fog from the weekend because it's not my usual routine of whatever's going on if I'm tailgating a home game or whatever for away games. And there's quite a few away games I'm going to try and make this year, although it might be very painful. Although that means good things because when I'm like visiting and then those fans are happy, it's good for my safety usually. So I don't necessarily, that might be okay. I don't know. I'll feel bad about it either, one way or the other, I guess.
You can always influence your own situation, man.
Hopefully. I don't get in fights with people. I really don't. I'm like the least like, what do you want to say?
Confrontational.
Yeah. I try and talk and have fun with folks. I learn a lot about some of the other fans. Like I said, when I was at Cincy, a guy tapped me on the shoulder and he was like, look, our long snapper's hurt. And I was listening to a radio thing and it was like, so they weren't feeling too confident about it at that point. And they've been through enough disappointment, whereas there's a lot of Steelers fans who have it and they feel really entitled. There's still some folks that are defending Mitch Trubisky. There's people who don't like Kenny Pickett for whatever reason, don't think he's the answer, and that's fair too. I got in an argument, this might predate you, Flash. There was a guy on Facebook that had said that the Steelers drafted Jim Miller way back in the day, and he was trying to compare it to Kenny Pickett. Jim Miller was like picked like 196 or something in the 6th round behind, dare I say, Neil O'Donnell and Mike Tomczak. And of course, O'Donnell was a guy that was making more money than Rod Woodson at one point, almost double, actually.
Yeah.
And the Steelers went to re-sign him after that terrible Super Bowl, and he took like an extra $1 million a year or just under to go to the Jets. They could have maybe ponied up a little more. They liked him, and they liked him long term. And for all the people who say that Tomlin won with Cowers players, guess what? That was a Chuck Noll player. Neil O'Donnell, a 3rd rounder, but 6th round pick was not picked to be the guy, nor was Dennis Dixon, nor was Landry Jones. Maybe Mason Rudolph was brought in to develop and see what he can do, but clearly he's not the guy either right now. And I make this argument when you look at Trubisky having 5.6, 4.3. Maybe I got this wrong. I'm sorry, wrong column. Average air yards per attempt. That makes it worse, actually. So the yards per attempt, 5.1, 509, and 647. This is like going to be like one of the worst, I think, in the modern era of the NFL among starting quarterbacks if this trend continues. If it wasn't Mitch Trubisky with this kind of lackluster performance, and it was Mason Rudolph, how vocal would the fans be right now? They'd be out of their minds. And that's what I don't get is how they're giving Mitch a pass. And Mason, they were booing in a preseason game just because he wasn't Kenny and Kenny wasn't coming in first. It's kind of just, it defies my logic here when there's like all of these different comparisons. Of course it defies it because usually like if I'm in this position and we're talking about a 1-2 team and looking ahead at the schedule, it's like, hey, it's not all doom and gloom. There might be one little leaky hole in the boat, but we could seal this and we're going to stay afloat. I don't feel that way at the moment, and it all has to deal with just how stubborn is Mike Tomlin going to be about this, or is he really being stubborn, or is he giving a lot of coach speak to the media and not just showing his hand? I would love nothing more for them than to just make this switch. It could still even happen in game, because I'm telling you, I was really feeling they might have made that switch. What if they get behind? I don't feel confident that Mitch is the kind of guy. He's not throwing enough touchdown passes in a game to score enough points on offense, enough yards otherwise. to come from behind and get you a victory against the team. So if they have
That's the
any
problem
other,
with game managing, dude. That's the exact problem
yeah,
with the game manager quarterback is once you fall behind enough, he can't manage his way to a lead, you know? And a game manager, we're using that term complimentary, I would think, towards these first 3 games towards Mitch because he hasn't managed a damn thing. It hasn't been good on offense at all. And these rumors and these reports that he's not allowed to run and he's not allowed to do audibles.
that's
Give me a break, dude. There's probably there's some truth in the fact that I can see a coach telling him like, hey, we want you to keep your eyes downfield on this play. So before you think about taking off, make sure like you go through your reads. The whole idea that he's not allowed to take off or audible, what is the point of him being the veteran starter then? This whole like his veteran presence. Dude, if he's not allowed to run, if he's not allowed to audible, what's his veteran presence supposed to help with or influence here? You might as well have a rookie out there if the handcuffs are going to be that tight. You know what I mean? Like that's a whole mental lapse in this story that he's not allowed to audible or run. Then dude, get him the hell out of there. If they don't trust him at all and there's any truth to that, which I don't even believe there is, what are we doing here with the idea that, oh, well, he knows how to be out there. He knows how to steer an offense because he has game experience and he's a 5-year veteran. And these are mediocre numbers that we're going over, man. These are the numbers you would expect from like a middle level, mid-round rookie quarterback. Why can't we just put Kenny out there and get the development process kickstarted again? And I alluded to this before in a previous show. And after Kenny's preseason, deciding not to go with him, and the longer they wait, I believe they're actually stunting his growth. He's not learning anything behind Mitch Trubisky watching a terrible offense. He's not gaining anything on the bench. And I love that you mentioned because I always forget to say this. There is a possibility that Kenny Pickett isn't the guy. There is a possibility that he isn't the future of this team. Well, how are you going to figure that out, man? You got to get him out there and see. I think personally he's going to be great from what he's shown me. But if he's not, you have to figure that out because at the rate at which we're losing games right now, which is early, but if you played out the whole season right now, we're on average to win what, 4 games, 5 games? We're going to be picking high, brother. So if we could get a different quarterback, if Kenny's not good, then let's do that. But you're not going to know if you just sit on him all year and keep telling yourselves, well, at least he's learning and developing behind a guy who's never even been good. That helps me sleep at night.
Yeah, no, that it doesn't, and especially when you're supposed to be the most pro-ready quarterback coming out of college. I get that everyone wasn't tripping over themselves like a Black Friday sale to try and get Kenny Pickett. And a lot of that had to deal with teams with multiple picks who had already they had their quarterback already in house or the guy that they hitched their saddles to,
and their rosters were so shitty, man. I got into this with a bunch of people pre-draft that were telling me my head was in the clouds and I didn't know what I was talking about, thinking that the quarterback of choice would just fall to the Steelers at 20. Because back then, albeit I thought it was Malik Willis, but I didn't think this, like the story of the draft class going into the combine and everything was that the quarterback class sucked. It was the worst we saw in years and all this stuff. But then that same narrative shifted to like, yeah, but quarterbacks always get pushed up. They always go higher than they should. They always get elevated. And I looked at those teams at the beginning of the draft and I thought, well, okay, the Panthers, yeah, they need a quarterback, but they suck everywhere else. The Seahawks, they need a quarterback. They suck everywhere else. Falcons, ×3. So all these teams that, yeah, they could have taken a quarterback if they wanted to right there. They have needs at every single position on the field. Like, every single one of them.
Yeah, and
so these teams in front of us that needed a quarterback, they needed a whole roster too. So you just when you're that bad, you take best player available. So I always thought it was possible that the Steelers would get a guy just sitting right at 20.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of people are misled too with the Steelers and talent at the roster. They're pretty solid all the way around. Like this isn't like they take a quarterback and draft a quarterback and then this team is in the dumps for the next 5 years necessarily. Quarterback means everything. Don't get me wrong, but they have the defensive players. They have the wide receivers. They have the skill position guys. The offensive line is not hot garbage that a lot of people like to think. You got
more and more people starting to come around on that.
About
Isn't
time.
That funny?
It's about time. What did Myles Garrett do? Well, did he have like 2 solo tackles or something like this? Hold on, I've got it here. Myles Garrett
could play like that versus he does Myles Garrett. Every player, he'd be all pro.
Yeah, and I get it. There's double teams, there's chips, everything else. Yeah, everybody's doing that. Everybody has their ace. That's their top edge rusher. It's about quarterbacks and the guys who get after them. That's the name of the game here. And you're going to get out. You're going to stifle the run game entirely and make the O-line look dumb too when you're holding the ball too long or you're not delivering it down the field. And there was some graphic somewhere, I wish I could put it up, that was Mitch's first half. He didn't go down the middle at all. You were going nuts on Twitter about Pat Freiermuth's usage in the game. What? You didn't get him involved until there was like 50 seconds left?
Oh my God, dude, I'm wearing a shirt. Perfect. Yes, you see that? Dude, we got to get the Muth more involved, man. You wait till the last 59 seconds of the game to get a top 10 level tight end. That's what he's playing like, involved in your game plan. And he had 2 catches for like 40 yards. He hit his over. He hit his over in the last 59 seconds because Mitch finally decided to throw him a ball. And the one wasn't even good. Freiermuth had to like moss over the dude's arms. So why are you not using one of your best, most reliable targets? That's a mental lapse on Mitch's part. That's definitely a negative bullet point on the Cleveland Brown performance. Was you can't tell me that he's that covered, that Freiermuth was that well taken care of all game. I happen to know that he wasn't. I saw him open multiple times. So to wait that long to get him involved, it's inexcusable.
No, it's very much inexcusable. And I've got my own shirt on here too, because people are like, oh, why are you going to trash the Steelers? Blah, blah, blah. Just ride with it. It's like, hey, for life right here. SteelCityUnderground.com/shop. Go check it out. Just a shameless plug on our behalf. But I want to see the team do well. That's why they need to make a change. I'm not necessarily throwing everybody else under the bus, and I don't like Matt Canada threw a screen pass that I didn't care for, and that was about it. I think most of the play calling, if executed, would do well. They were able to run the ball in the first half, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm going to take a pause here before I get into some of the other quarterback numbers too, and see. You were talking about rookie numbers with quarterbacks and just where does Mitch fall into all of these categories, and it's not very flattering. As well as I should bring up the time of possession disparity with the Pittsburgh Steelers through the first 3 games at 76-33, which qualifies as the team's second lowest in their first 3 games of any season since the statistic was tracked first in 1983. The worst was 75-24 in 2019, and that would be when Ben got hurt, and then Mason was out there with you didn't even have name brand players. They were all the great value ones eventually at some point, Dante Moncrief and stuff like that. But I'm taking the pause for one of our sponsors here at the Steel City Underground podcast. It's No House Advantage. And No House Advantage is changing the game by offering the most dynamic fantasy sports platform available today. Play and pick 'em contests versus other people for a shot at winning up to $150,000 and more in cash. So download the app, choose a contest, select your player props, earn points for correct picks, climb the leaderboard for your shot to win big money every day. You could also test your skills versus the house and 20 times your entry if you hit all of your picks, and you could bet on different player props, over-unders, individual player matchups across all kinds of different sports. So what you want to do is head on over to No House Advantage and check out the and sign up with the promo code. I'm sorry, gotta make sure I get my wording right. Steel City, as it usually always is, and you can see this here at the bottom of the screen. And Zach, we're gonna look at this actually for a second here. I'm going to pull up No House Advantage and some of the props and stuff that are for the Monday night game here. So let's take a look and see what kind of games we got over at No House Advantage. Might look at this again ahead of the Steelers game, but you've got your standard kind of $5, $10 entries. Let's say you wanted to play for cheap. That's what I probably do. $2,000 on the play action pass contest, $1,000 to first place with the Cowboys and the Giants. And how this works is you get points depending on which player prop you end up selecting. So if you get the one that hits best for you, you're going to get 7 points. So for example, just looking at this, this is actually interesting too into what we're about to talk about. Cooper Rush has a chance like tonight to have better stats than Mitch Trubisky in only like 2 games or 2.5 games or whatever. He wasn't around the first one because he was on the practice squad. It's a guy that didn't even make a full roster. But let's just say, what's Cooper Rush got going for a prop? 233.5 passing yards, 1.5 passing touchdowns, or a half interception. I mean, he's going against the Giants. He might get the touchdown passes.
I like the touchdowns one. I'm thinking like you. That's a lot of yards for the sputtering offense that they've had. But
Yeah.
I like the 2 touchdowns. I could see that for sure.
Yeah, so you want to go on here, and you're going to want to pick you got to pick an over under, and I'm liking the over on that one myself. And so how this works is you're going to go head to head, just like any of your other daily fantasy games, just by picking on prop bets and the over under on whichever prop bet. So if Cooper on this one hits what we picked on the over for 1.5 touchdown passes, that would be 7 points for our team in the head to head contest. And I mean, there's some other ones here. CD Lamb, I think I was looking at CD earlier, 67.5 receiving yards, 5.5 receptions. I like maybe the over on the receptions. Who else are they going to throw to?
Oh, you know what? Give me the over on both of those. I like them. Not just because I need about 20 points out of CD in my one league, but I am confident for him tonight. I think he catches his stride. CD is such a conundrum, man. I think he can be so good. He's so cool. And like his highs are super high, but I don't think it's all necessarily his fault. Like all the turmoil the Cowboys have gone through since he's been drafted. Number one, a lot of people thought it was a reach of a pick and an unnecessary pick at the time with the receivers they already had. And Dak's continued injuries and playing with backup quarterbacks. I still think CeeDee Lamb can be a star. I don't know about a top 5 receiver in this league, but I think he can still be a star. And tonight would be a big step in that right direction because the more you show up in prime time, the more respect you get.
Yeah, totally. And I'm trying to see if we got where are all the here we go. Now we can get into maybe some of the Giants props and see what they got as well. And I know folks,
How about Saquon Barkley, man?
Oh, that's what I was looking at. He's right here. 78.5 rushing, 26.5 receiving, 4.5 receptions. You could probably take it over on just about any of those, maybe, especially I think he run for the ball against the Cowboys for sure. Receptions, you never know how much he's going to be involved, but it is Cooper Rush, and the backup quarterbacks are dump down masters and everything. I kind of like looking at Daniel Jones.
He is Daniel Jones, who also is a dump down master, but yeah, same difference. So they're I like those all 3 for Barkley too. I think the rushing might be the hardest to accomplish based off of the game plan, but the receiving yards is not high, and the reception number is not high either. The Giants, they kind of struggle to get their receivers involved. I know that the Kadarius Toney thing has been a focal point of attacks from fans because Kadarius Toney is a really explosive player, and the Giants are just really resistant to get him involved in the game plan, which spells good for Saquon Barkley. So,
how much of that is your quarterback holding you back? And we've got similar kind of prop bet numbers on Daniel Jones. 220.5 passing, 1.5 passing touchdowns, half for interceptions, and I almost want to go 220 and under on Daniel Jones. Take
you over on interceptions.
Yeah, well, maybe that as well, and that's
might get him once.
So that's exactly where I'm at. Go ahead and visit No House Advantage. Download the app on the App Store for iOS devices, your Apple devices, or the Android store for everything else, I suppose. Or is that the Google Play Store for Android? I got that upside down. I'm an Apple guy. I'm sorry. I have both. I have had both. So I'm not like this fanboy. I'm the same way with game systems. It's like Sony, Microsoft. It's like, no, I have both sitting under the TV for the most part. Nintendo. Yeah, I'm a Switch guy too. So, and don't forget too, you could also get that first deposit match up to $25 by using that promo code Steel City at nohouseadvantage.com. And the reason I bring up all of these fun tidbits, Daniel Jones and everything, Cooper Rush, you're like, man, talk about this game. Well, it's a game that's coming up, and it's the one I have to illustrate for our sponsor. So thank you to No House Advantage. But it also goes and doesn't look too favorable when you got to bring up the itty bitty stuff. If you got full screen and you're somewhere and you can actually see some of these things. Hold on, I just got to put you like with your face like up against there. Not as bad as Brian with the glasses. I'd like to pull it up a little larger, but you see what happens. They got these. I
can see.
Yeah, they're trying to. They're still trying to sell me Frontier flights, even though I've already got one. Here in the future.
Man, I hate the pop-ups. They come up on all the websites I go on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to show you, you got to go all the way down to number 27 to find Mitchell Trubisky through 3 games with 569 yards passing. And Jacoby Brissett's just a little bit better, but he has 4 touchdown passes. I know Mitch has run
Marcus
for 3.
Mariota's above Mitch, dude. I mean, come on.
Well, let's look at everybody. I mean, you've got Matt Ryan at 700 something. Kirk Cousins is there. Lamar Jackson, Lamar Jackson's been on fire just leading his team. But Geno Smith has 717 and 4 TDs. Aaron Rodgers has been pretty bad too, but still 4 touchdowns. Tom Brady's been bad. 673. These guys are still passing for 200 more yards than Mitch is. Davis Mills, who has a worse completion percentage, has more touchdown passes than Mitchell Trubisky, as well as 662 yards. He almost has a full 100 yards more. Ryan Tannehill's doing bad. Marcus Mariota's at 640. The only guys that are doing worse, Baker Mayfield, 51.9 completion percentage, 3 touchdown passes. Still one more touchdown pass than Money Mitch.
And at least he won last week.
Jimmy Garoppolo's almost caught him in like a game and a half, 365 yards and 2 touchdowns. Daniel Jones still has to play tonight. 3 touchdown passes, 364. So if he throws for the 200, I had him as the under, but you never know if he still gets in that 200 range. He's going to pass. Mitch is going to be down here at like 34 out of 32 teams. Cooper Rush has 299 in a game here with his 1 start and a touchdown.
I just don't understand the caping for this guy at this point, man. It's like it sounds like a personal problem. Like, is it self-hatred? Because you out there, the fan, you deserve to love. You deserve to have a good football team. You deserve to win. And Kenny Pickett can win for you, man. I don't know it, but I know it. And Mitch, what he's putting out there, this is not winning football. It doesn't deserve this outcry and this outpour of like, oh, well, this part isn't his fault. That part's not his fault. This part under here, once you turn this stone over, that's not actually Mitch's fault either. Dude, it isn't this complicated. It doesn't need this like in-depth look at inside the analytics. And if you look at it in this certain light, Mitch could win the game if this ball would have bounced the other way. You shouldn't have to boil it down like that. If the quarterback was just better and you were getting better play, it wouldn't come down to 1 or 2 or 3 mistakes a game. It truthfully wouldn't. Some games do, but when your offense does something, when your offense can move the ball and score points, not every mistake is colossal.
Yeah,
right
like the gunner muff. Exactly that. If you're capable of doing anything else or keeping the defense off the field.
Deontay's drop, whatever. Like these 1 or 2 mistakes a game, we shouldn't be losing the game because of these moments. I know NFL Turning Point is a whole show, but it isn't 1 or 2 moments a game that should be deciding a football game. We shouldn't be in these scenarios. Especially, we should have beat the Patriots, dude. They're not the better team. And the Browns with Brissett, like I'm sick thinking about those. We managed to beat the Bengals off sheer dumb luck, but we should have won these next 2 games. And if Kenny was in, we would have had a better chance.
Well, and it's like a catch-22 because I think if they win the games, then there might be more reluctancy to make a move from Mitch Trubisky. And I know it's all been Mitch Trubisky. We're going to talk about a few other things, maybe his changes too, but Mitch is 25th overall in completion percentage, 60.2. Russell Wilson, who we were just talking about, actually worse. Cooper Rush, Jared Goff, Joe Flacco, Davis Mills, Baker Mayfield, Justin Fields has been actually the only quarterback you can maybe justifiably say in all metrics has been worse. In fact, the Bears are something like in the modern era, I think have thrown the fewest touchdown passes, I think, since like the 80s. I forget one of the New England Patriots teams in the 80s. I heard it on the radio this morning with it was Charlie Weiss, I think, brought it up. They only had like 74 attempts or something through 3 games.
That sounds right, dude. They've had one good quarterback in my whole lifetime, and that's Jay Cutler. So
and Jay Cutler, I was hoping would be the ceiling of Mitch Trubisky, actually, and he's not even right quite there either.
I would take that, yeah.
Yeah, Justin Fields, 8 carries yesterday, and only 8 completions. He had as many carries.
They're treating him like a running back who happens to have a decent arm. I don't understand the game plan with Justin Fields at all. He's playing bad, but the offensive scheme, I mean, this is like the Steelers times 10. Like it's bad all around for the Bears, and they're really not giving.
And they're 2-1
yes.
somehow. Yeah. So the ball bouncing right or not in spite of it, but if everything else doesn't work in your favor, that's exactly what we were just talking about. And just to pull up the other part of this, let's see, yards per attempt. This is the one where it becomes a little more gross to put on the screen. Jalen Hurts, man, 9.3. They're just airing it out. Tua, 9.2. Lamar, 8.5. Even Mac Jones, 8.1. Mariota, 8.1. Even the quarterbacks that we had somewhere further down the list. You get all the way down here, And it's like 27. Joe Burrow hasn't been doing so hot, but you've got Kirk Cousins 6.4, Davis Mills 6.2, and that's like really bottom barrel. And you go below 6, you got Joe Flacco 5.8, Kyler Murray at 5.6, and Mitchell Trubisky at 5.5 yards per attempt. He is the absolute number 32, bottom of the league in yards per attempt.
Yeah, okay, so you named that was great, dude. You named two guys that I think should be highlighted there. So Mariota, who is also in like this similar stage of his career as Mitch, where it's kind of like, this is it, dude. Like you might be somewhere else after this, but you're gonna probably be a backup for the duration of your career. But you're given this opportunity to kind of have this season, for lack of a better term, until you screw it up enough that you get benched. But then we're going a different direction. We're going to go with Desmond Ridder. We're going to go with Kenny Pickett. Look at how Mariota's playing, man. He's not playing like this scared little bitch who's afraid to take shots down the field. And I'm sorry, like Mitch, nice guy, new father, all that stuff, saying the right things. But sometimes, this is more than that. We're talking about the Steelers here and winning football games. And when you look at what Mariota's doing, like taking chances, and albeit they aren't always smart chances, that's what you want to see out of a guy who's at this point in his career. And Flacco is at the end of his career, knows he's going to get replaced as soon as Wilson's healthy. He's just out there like going through the motions. And even he has a higher yards per throw average. So Mitch, there's really no excuse to this, like, oh, well, he's playing it safe. He's not taking shots down the field so that he doesn't lose the game for us.
Yeah, just imagine if he starts doing that too, and he starts taking shots and throws it away. It's going to be even worse. They're going to get the doors blown off of them. And that begs the question of, is it the coaching? Are the coaches not allowing him to do this, that, or the other thing? I've got some pretty incriminating evidence. I don't know what this is he's doing with his hands. He's not allowed to change calls or make hand signals or any gestures. Maybe he's telling the fans that Heinz Field, Acrisure Stadium, to calm and quiet down. It's like the Ben at Work sign, which doesn't exist. There's no Mitch at Work, the thing that comes on the scoreboard anymore. It might, if there's the Kenny chance that, Mike Tomlin
Ben at Work.
Yeah, he hasn't been Mike Tomlin doesn't hear those chants, by the way. He's not looking to make a change. They're not allowing him the audible. So it's all on the coaches. It's all very mid. This is a guy that's only won one playoff game in the last 5 seasons. Forget the Bill Belichick hasn't won one in like 3 years. And John Harbaugh has like 1 or 2 in the last decade since winning a Super Bowl. Or how many times has Pete Carroll been back to the playoffs? And you've got all of these. I tell people all the time, how many Super Bowls did Sean Payton win with Drew Brees? 1. How many did Tony Dungy win with Peyton Manning? 1. How many did John Madden win? Legendary all-time coach. 1, because he ran into Chuck Noll. The Steelers were in the same conference with the dynasty of the New England Patriots and run into them all the time. Whether it's seeding during the season, a regular season contest, or matching up with them in the postseason. And how many times it's like, oh, he wasted the talents of the Killer Bees. You had Antonio Brown, you had Martavis Bryant, you had Le'Veon Bell, and Ben Roethlisberger. How many playoff games did you have all of those guys on the field for? 1. And the 1 year right before that was 2017, and that loss to the Jaguars, where Ben Roethlisberger, he threw a bunch of picks, and then they didn't bring Todd Haley back. And the rushing offense for the Steelers has not been the same since Todd Haley has been gone. He got scapegoated a lot for 4th and 1s, for interceptions, et cetera, in what was a 13-3 season. And that drives me crazy because everyone's going to blow up and say, well, if Mike Munchak was here at the offensive line, kind of baloney. Mike Munchak's a great coach, great position coach, but the talent was already here. Marquise Pouncey was already here. David DeCastro was already here. Me and Brian went over offensive line, by the way, too. So this goes to coaching and also offensive line. I don't think offensive line is 100% the problem. You got people already saying, well, they need to draft a tackle next year. Maybe, maybe not. Let's see. Well, Dan Moore, did you watch what he did against Myles Garrett? Pro Football Focus gives him like an 80 or whatever for his grade, which is actually like a good score, right? What did he do in the game? He did jack squat. I actually didn't pull that up. They only gave up 1 sack as a unit. And maybe I can't find his name.
About Daniels has given up no pressures. Yeah, Chooks is playing like a good tackle.
Yeah.
Cole's been really solid. Dawson's like regaining his form. Two
assisted tackles, not even a solo tackle in that game. He shows up. I guess he got to Mitch once. He got like 1 quarterback hit. and the whole thing. And they gave him an 80. And they gave him an 80 because they're going to say he's like quadruple teamed or whatever baloney they come up with. And they can never give the due respect to Minka or TJ Watt. That's my rant on Pro Football Focus for this week's, folks. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. But I don't have problems. I think the pass protection's there. I think the time is there. I think there's too much time being taken, and Mitch doesn't anticipate the throws, and he waits for guys to get wide open, which doesn't exist in the NFL game the same way as it did in college. You got to throw some guys open. You got to throw those routes. And if you don't have it, look at the catches. People are like, well, Big Ben made these throws. Look at Santonio Holmes and the catch he had to make. That's a whole lot of difference than George Pickens, where he's throwing it. Pickens isn't running that route. He has to come back and stretch out and basically throw his shoulder out of his socket in order to make that throw and have some grown-ass man hand strength in order to hold on to the football. And Deontay has a one-handed catch, maybe two that are very similar so far this season. And Chase has one, and Pat Freiermuth has one or two that are low or wherever.
On Twitter, after Pickens had the one-handed catch, they had a picture of his and Deontay's side to side. And I think it was either Sports Center or Bleacher Report or one of those sites. And they were like, what are they feeding these receivers in Pittsburgh? And I said, bad balls, dude. Like, and then
it's true.
Not to be like cynical about it, but those are bad passes. And Deontay and Pickens bailed them out. So people that are coming heavy on Deontay, for his drop in the last game, it's like, dude, he's a big part of the reason why we even won the first game. So yeah, I'm not giving him excuses. You want him to be more consistent than that. But I think a little too much focus is on the Deontay drop, honestly, with the Mitch, with the last game being like, oh, that was the game right there. Well, it shouldn't have been the game right there. It truthfully shouldn't have. We should have been in a better position to win the game, and it shouldn't have came down to a drop in the closing minutes or whenever that was in the game.
Yeah, and Deontay Johnson, he has 21 receptions, 196 yards for the Steelers. Pat Freiermuth somehow has 11 for 138. He's the second leading receiver, despite only getting a handful of catches all in like the last closing moments of the game. It's like, these are your weapons.
And that Big Ben thing, dude, I hate those people. They're so annoying. They're like, oh, I seem to remember a quarterback who's been here the past 15 years that has made throws like that, and he wouldn't say a peep. And people just excuse it, and people just, let him be. How is that a relevant argument, man? How is that, number one, fixing what Mitch is doing? How is that, number two, there was never a first-round quarterback who was better than Ben behind him on the bench, ready to go. Ben never had this prove himself year about him. Ben, no kidding that people are going to treat Ben Roethlisberger better than Mitch Trubisky in Pittsburgh. It's not always that black and white, and people think they're so smart, like actuallying you all over the place on Twitter, being like, yeah, well, Big Ben would have made that same throw. What are we arguing about here, man? Does it make you feel better to be like people were too nice to Ben over the years? Sure, they were. Like, does that make you feel better hearing that? Ben was a dick, like it's a part of his personality. It's part of like playing quarterback is being this demonstrative, like commanding presence in the huddle and being like, this is my team, like this is how I want to run things. And Ben kind of abused it, but like it's part of the quarterback aura. It isn't like this huge, oh, he's such a bad person.
Because Tom Brady's such a nice guy.
People act like still. What's up?
Tom Brady's such a nice guy, breaking Surface tablets and whatever. And I mean, there's a lot of craziness. And the Steelers, it's not their style to like fire a position coach early or even in the middle of a season. They rode with Randy Fichtner the whole way. You could say what you will. I think the receivers are open. We see it on film. You saw that on that George Pickens catch too. Somebody like Chase Claypool was wide open right in the middle of the field. It's like the old meme of or GIF that you see floating around with Trubisky with the Bears, where I don't remember who it was. Who was it? Trey Burton? Yeah, I thought so. I was going to say who was the tight end there, and he's like doing jumping jacks in the middle of the field, and he couldn't find him.
It repeats itself.
It's very similar. It's very similar, and it's problematic. And can coaching fix that for that player? I mean, how much time are you going to give him? And I think you give more time to get that rookie going. Is he behind a bad offensive line? If he gets rid of the ball faster, I think you're just going to see a whole different pace to everything when he gets in there. He's not going to be the deer in headlights. I hate to say this, man, but it's just like I often wonder. It's like if Mason Rudolph would have been in there, I'm not going to say that they're going to be any different than 1 and 2. But I kind of wonder, like, would things be a little bit different? Are there at least some catchable balls? It doesn't seem like anything comes easy whatsoever. He throws some lasers, and that's what I was just talking about Russell Wilson, too. It's like nothing looks easy coming from him right now, but he at least gives you the ability to win at the end of the game like he did last night. I don't see it with Mitch Trubisky. I'm sorry. It all depends. Like, he'll have a bad first half and all of a sudden he'll turn around. But if it's the other way around, he turns into a pumpkin at midnight. Everyone's looking around with the glass slipper to see, where did this guy go? What happened to him? And it happens within the same game. We haven't had one full game where Mitch just is consistent.
Exactly, man. Exactly. And that's not enough to cling to let this guy to continue to start. You can't keep banking off of the fact that, oh, maybe he'll put out one good quarter of play. You might as well play the rookie at that point. This is what, like, the people who are left on that side that want to keep giving Mitch these opportunities, it's what are you clinging to at this point? And I happen to think that Mason would at least be taking shots. If I'm going to be, as the preseason isn't important, but if I'm going off of what I saw from Kenny Pickett in the preseason, Mason would at least be taking shots. I feel comfortable saying that. And we probably, in a sense, would be doing better, at least on offense. I don't know if there'd be more wins in the win column, but we'd be doing better on offense. I think I'm to that point that Mitch is just playing it too freaking safe. It's a bummer watching the offense out there. And there's a reason why the whole put him in, provide a spark. There's a reason that's a sports cliche, and it's talked about and overused in a sense, but that really will happen. That what they're saying with that is, like, the offense, every player, the linemen, the running backs, the receivers, the tight ends, they're playing with more energy, more pep in their step, more like, okay, here we go. Like, the coaches are trying something different. Now I feel re-energized. And that is a real thing that happens all of the time when you've got a team who has a rookie behind a veteran journeyman who is better than the journeyman. The rest of the team knows it. They see it. So when you put him in, it's going to send a message to the team that it's like, okay, guys, like, he's in there now. Like, let's get serious. Let's there's no turning back now. It's Kenny time. And a lot of people cringe at that because they think pro athletes are just going to have it on at all times. But you can see the morale clear as day, steadily declining with each snap.
Yeah. It's how much longer are you going to let that morale kind of keep going, swirling down the toilet bowl, you know? I want to get over and talk about with some of the coaching stuff too, because it's like, do you think Mitch can not play it safe? Do you really think some of these schemes and plays aren't getting players open? It's not what I'm seeing. I see guys that are running free and just not being found. And this whole thing about audibles or whatever, we're seeing RPOs. We're definitely seeing RPOs. We see some changes at the line. Maybe he doesn't change the full play. Maybe they don't trust him. They just know that he's like, he's not that guy. Like, Ben had like 18 years of football. How much did Ben cover up versus this? This is why they're attacking Canada, or they're attacking Tomlin. Oh, Tomlin's only capable of doing these same things. And I went back to like those playoff games too. You lose Ryan Shazier and you can't defend. And you see what ends up happening. Like, you lose your best players. Like TJ Watt really does make that big a difference. You got to, again, it's the quarterback and getting after the quarterback. You don't think TJ's out there, he can make a difference with Mac Jones and Jacoby Brissett? What do you think is going to happen with Josh Allen and Tom Brady and all these guys that are coming down the pike, you know? So as far as the coaching aspect of it, it's like, how much more can you coach a guy to not play safe? I don't think he's capable of not playing safe. That's why I don't believe that the coach is the problem. But you have some of the things that you had to do with Big Ben, whether he didn't want to or he wasn't capable at an accelerated age of playing under center. When you're playing shotgun, you kind of like have an idea. If you're the defense, what are you doing there? You're standing around, you're watching, you're trying to guess if it's a run or a pass play. That's the first thing you're trying to figure out. As everyone's going into motion, you're trying to remember what you saw in the film room. This might be something new that hasn't been put on film, but there is, run or pass. And you put somebody under center, like Mitch Trubisky or something. I think, you got to look over these giant linemen, number one, to see what's happening and hiding the football and things of this nature. And when it's being thrown, when it's shotgun, it's like you're just running straight at. And the Steelers were doing a lot of shotgun with Ben Roethlisberger, and I think that hindered part of the run game too. I think the offensive line was very much poorer last season. As we said, there are guys off the street, off the practice squad that are jumping in there, rookies, Kendrick
I
Green.
agree with that. I agree with that.
Yeah. So you had to get rid of the ball a lot quicker too, and I think that handicapped what Ben was capable of. We don't know what physically he wasn't capable of at 39 years of age. So necessarily saying that you're seeing the same stuff with both quarterbacks might not necessarily be true, because I think some of it with Ben Roethlisberger was by design, whereas with Mitchell Trubisky, it's because he's limited and that's all he's capable of doing. And he gets happy feet. You think he makes that one read and all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's going to be somebody on me and I got to move. And it's always running. And sometimes he's rolling out where there's no options for him to throw to. And he doesn't get rid of the ball. He doesn't throw it out of bounds. He doesn't
Dude, the
Andy
sacks
Dalton
he's
it.
taken by the sideline, I can't take him
Yeah.
anymore. I think there's been 2 or 3 times he's rolled out, escaped pressure or a clean pocket, and gotten to the sideline. So, like, by legal definition, he has time to throw. If he can escape a clean pocket or rush and get to the sideline, he has time to throw. He's taking sacks on the side, right there on the sideline, man. What are you doing?
Yeah, and I saw something earlier, and I was trying to pull it up. There was a statistic about Lamar Jackson, and specifically, it was about how much his completion percentage from the pocket. He's supposed to be a running back, and he has a very, very high. I mean, right now, number 1 TD passes, number 1 passer rating, and he's the 4th leading rusher in the NFL. And let me see if I can find. If
That's
I
my
can find
boy,
this
dude.
real
Oh,
quick.
yeah. That's why I was very vocal this offseason. I'm a Lamar guy.
Oh, here we go. I found it. And here we go. This is from Doug Farrar. He's an NFL editor with USA Today Sports Groups. Among the wire sites, Lamar Jackson's thrown 88% of his passes from the pocket this season, completing 66 of those, 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. You still have to be able to throw from the pocket in the NFL. And Mitch moves from what you just said. Thanks for saying that. Clean pockets. They're keeping them upright. They're keeping guys like Garrett off there. Yeah, I know Jadeveon Clowney wasn't there too. That may have been a little more beneficial for the Cleveland Browns. But against the Bengals and everything else, it's like, hey, we're now 3 games, now going to be 4 games into this. And you got a mini bye. And if we're going to go and roll with Mitch one more time, how much more is it going to be Mitch versus coaches? Tomlin isn't going anywhere, and Tomlin really isn't the problem, folks. It could be much worse. We mentioned Nathaniel Hackett. You get a new guy, and then all of a sudden he's making, like, here, let's kick a 64-yard field goal. What is that jazz? You know what I mean?
He was almost a brain surgeon, too, I heard once in an interview. Hackett, he was almost a brain surgeon, and he's out here kicking 64-yard field goals.
Yeah, it just makes you wonder, like, are you playing fantasy football? Like, what exactly are you doing? And with the time of possession being among the worst through the first 3 games ever in Steelers history, it has to make it has to make you think that they're not doing enough to keep the defense off the field. It's the offense has to hold up their end of the bargain. And you got to be able to run the football. Is that on the offensive line? Not when you're not backing guys off of that line of scrimmage. You're not going to be able to create a whole lot when you've got 8, 9 guys in the box. That's why the 3rd and 2 was the right play call. You've seen it happen. Every offensive coordinator that's been here, every game you watch on Saturday or Sunday, sometimes you're dialing it up. Sometimes you're dialing it up a play action on 1st down. That's just the way it goes. And so I don't have a problem really with, like, the play calling. To me, it just seems like it's more the quarterback's decisions and execution of those plans versus the actual plans that are laid in place. And that's why you're not going to hear me yell, fire Matt Canada just yet. People are still sticking to the preseason narrative of, oh, the offensive line was bad for that one game against the Jaguars. Jaguars are what, 2-1 now? They just blew the doors off of somebody else yesterday. Somebody's going to say, oh, well, they could have hired Doug Peterson, and that's the way that they would be. Not with Mitchell Trubisky, I'm sorry. Maybe you get to see Kenny Pickett blossom into Trevor Lawrence, because Trevor Lawrence he had more interceptions than touchdown passes last year, and he had Urban Meyer and then whoever ended up filling in after that. And it was just a terrible first year for him, and now he might be settling in. Were you the one who tweeted that as well, that a good Trevor Lawrence is good for the NFL? I think you might have said that or retweeted somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, because everybody loves. I mean, it's so cool to see the new group of young quarterbacks kind of taking the NFL by the horns and being the new faces, and we've kind of easily transitioned to this period of Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, away from Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, who's still playing, Big Ben, Drew Brees. That the shift is kind of all but completed itself. but a lot of what could be in the NFL, I think, is riding on Trevor Lawrence because he was supposed to be our ages, or not our ages, but this new age's Andrew Luck, in a sense, where he was supposed to be the perfect prospect. And there's no way you can miss on this guy. He does everything right, above the shoulders, physical freak, checks every box. So for him to be getting it now, and it seems like scouts are right and the NFL was right, it's good for the NFL. It's good for football. Similar but different to like the Giants being a good football team because they're just like a historic franchise. Like it's better for fans and it's better for viewership and it makes the league more fun, especially with Trevor Lawrence because the Jaguars are such a, I mean, I know they have our numbers, but they're like such an irrelevant franchise when it boils down to it. Like the best moments as a franchise are losses in championship games, you know? So if he can make them competitive and make them a like featured team in prime time, that's cool. I'm for that.
Yeah, I want to say he might have led the league in interceptions last year with 17. I'm not sure. I got to go back and look at that, but he had 12 touchdowns to 17 interceptions, sub 60% completion percentage. Now this year he's at 69.4. Nice. 6 TDs already, half of what he had last year, and only thrown 1 pick so far. And against a Colts team that should probably be better than what they've been, and they've been without Shaq, formerly Darius Leonard, as we know. And then the Chargers. I mean, the Chargers were a lot of people's. They're trying to pick them for the Super Bowl. I think that was what Filipponi and a few of these other guys on the Fan actually did. 38-10 against the Jaguars in LA. Yeah. It's not even in Jacksonville. I mean, it's just that's what you might. Trip. Yeah, it's what you might be looking at because I mean, the first year of Trevor Lawrence, I mean, there was some pretty substandard games. I mean, really, he had a 4 interception game against the Titans. It all
started with him helping us get in the playoffs last year, though.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's not to just go on that. It's to make it like something like comparable, like who's the top pick, who's like the head of this class with the quarterback stuff. And I think it's the same way, like Joe Burrow, to me, and I've been on record saying this from his rookie season, never looked out of place. He looked like Joe Cool. He looked like he had command. He looked like the moment wasn't too big. And seeing Kenny Pickett play in the preseason, it wasn't like even Mason, you could see some trepidation as a rookie. Landry Jones, absolutely terrible. There was some other guy that was drafted around the same time that went to the Giants too. I forget what his name was. And with him in a preseason game was like one of the worst things you'd ever watch. The guy was like crapping his pants. The moment was too big. All the urination thing that Mike Tomlin and these coaches were talking about, this guy had it running straight down his leg into a puddle. And bringing up Mason just one more time and talking about the coaches and stuff, it's like, how excited were we about George Pickens? And we got a lot of that excitement because of Mason and Kenny playing in the preseason. They dialed up some of those big plays. The one highlight, that ball was delivered from George and George makes that play because it's there. Was it a struggle? It was a catchable ball where he could then concentrate to keep his feet in bounds. It's a little different than laying out backwards like you're, I don't know, in one of those gravity chairs or something. Like, it's insanity to me. It's insanity to me to be calling for Tomlin's head. Oh, this has all been the same because it's mediocre. Mike Tomlin's already gone through at least one rebuild. That loss with Tim Tebow and that 2008, 2005, 2008 guys, really 2008, because there was a lot of turnover between Cowher and Tomlin too. All the linebackers, for example, Joey Porter wasn't there anymore. James Harrison was only a role player and turned into defensive player of the year. The entire secondary, with the exception of Troy Polamalu, changes over, and you've got Ryan Clark and guys like that. But the big snack, Casey Hampton, you had Aaron Smith, who got hurt at one point there, Lamar Woodley, who didn't pan out. All those guys got turned over. It was a new leaf. And Lawrence Timmons was the first ever pick. See, those guys weren't even Cowher guys, Timmons and Woodley. Those were picks, the first picks of Tomlin. And those were that 2008 and then 2010 that lost the Super Bowl to the Packers. And all of that got turned over. Those guys got old, James Ferrier, this and that. And they had to switch over to like the Ryan Shaziers of the world and the Vince Williams and that. Now we're turning yet another leaf. How many of these guys like TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Minka Fitzpatrick, they weren't even around like, that 13-3 team, 2017. Okay, Watt, rookie. Okay, I'll give you that. 2016, a team that was in the AFC Championship game by hook or by crook without Antonio Brown got his bell rung at one point. Vontaze Burfict knocks him out. You forget about Fitzgerald Toussaint fumbling a football in 2015 in a divisional game that they had. They were about to
never forget about that.
Oh,
I play
man.
That every night in my head.
Yeah, Peyton Manning and that team just completely on the ropes, and they were going for the knockout blow. And then those things aren't Mike Tomlin coaching problems. When Ben could only throw to Kobe Hamilton and Jesse, running like a baby giraffe. James gets knocked over if I push him with my index finger. I love Jesse James was here, and he still caught the freaking football against the Patriots. Yes, that also seeded them against the Jaguars. There's so many different things. I'm not trying to make excuses for Mike Tomlin. I'm just trying to tell all you people to chill out. You've seen that meme before where it's like, oh, well, they lost to David Garrard. David Garrard, who was a Pro Bowl quarterback, maybe even an All-Pro at one point. The guy was good with the Jaguars way back when. It might have been the last time they've had some winning seasons with Fred Taylor at running back and Jimmy Smith and guys like that. You know what I mean? They've been perpetually bad. That team, I think 7 losing seasons in the last 10 years or something like that. It's just really, really bad. But they had all this money, all these high draft picks. Eventually, you'd think they would turn it around. Some people cite that too. They say, oh, the Steelers haven't drafted really well. TJ Watt, and you get excited about Deontay Johnson or Chase Claypool or Pat Freiermuth or Najee Harris, but they don't draft well. No, not at all. That's just complete sheer stupidity. I think the defense will come around when they don't have to be on the field 10 plus minutes, 12 plus minutes, 15 plus minutes. And you got to keep that turnover ratio in the plus column, because you just never know what's going to happen with the quarterbacks, whether it's the rookie or not, whether it be Mason, whether it be Kenny Pickett, Kenny and the Jets, or even Mitchell Trubisky, for, crying out loud. I'm out of breath. We're up against it. I'm not sure if you got some other notes to say. I think it's very clear that we're going to be talking quarterback. I don't even think against the Jets that Mitch could come out there and do like a prop of 250. You're going to be taking the under on 1.5 touchdown passes. I know Sauce Gardner's gotten lost out there at some point, but it's I don't see the ceiling's not going to be there unless this team can run the ball down someone's throats. And the only way they're going to be able to run down someone's throats is to complete some of these big passes. And every one of these big gain touchdown passes has been done as part of a struggle with George laying out, Deontay laying out, or, as we said, trick play, flea flicker, free play on the offside, where now he takes the shot because he knows if he F's up, it's just coming back. You know what I mean? And I'm just sitting there.
You got an easier time dragging your 9-year-old to the dentist than you do helping Mitch complete an NFL pass further than 15 yards. It shouldn't have to be this bend over backwards process. And the people that I just think people just love living in misery, man, because you can blame Tomlin all you want for like the game plans and the mental lapses on the field. But fact of the matter is, and not to sound like an asshole about it, Tomlin's not going anywhere. Tomlin's not going anywhere for a while, okay? So the idea that, like, he's going to get fired, or, like, there's this – your issue is with Tomlin and, like, oh, he's doing this, is his fault. Tomlin can't be fixed right now. As much as you want Tomlin to be fixed, I don't think it's an issue, but there are people out there that think he's an issue. What you can fix is the quarterback. That is the simplest way that I feel like I can boil it down is – there's all these problems, right? And there are with the offense. But the one solution that some people still are having a hard time accepting is we can try and fix things if you just put the next quarterback in. I think it'll spark the offense, and I think it'll spark the defense. Like you said, they'll be playing more inspired, because you can't keep expecting the defense to rise to the occasion and play well when they get 3 plays of rest and then a punt, 6 plays of rest and then a punt. Or worse, quick turnover. It's a domino effect, right? Everybody knows what that is, the domino effect. And the sooner you get Mitch out of there, the rest of the dominoes will fall. Things will get better. Slowly, slow and steady, they will get better.
Yeah, I truly believe that. And you're just going to assume that Kenny isn't mature enough and he's just going to make a bunch of mistakes and make the team even worse. And it's like, well, let's find out, because you're going to wait an extra year when you got the top quarterback class just right around the corner, one of the more anticipated crop of college QBs coming out. If you have an absolutely pitiful season, you could pull an Arizona Cardinals, move on from Josh Rosen, and move on to Kyler Murray back to back. I mean, why the hell not? And this is the other thing. I saw some people dragging Tyson Alualu. And it came via Mark Madden, who tweeted somebody else who has a blog somewhere, and they're talking about how bad he's played, and people are talking, we're going to put this in the film room. The Steelers, do you think the Steelers were playing Alou primarily defensive tackle, nose tackle, base 3-4, as well as Montravius Adams, by the way, more snaps for both of them than in the previous 2 games because the Cleveland Browns run the football primarily? And it's a Thursday night game. It's a short week. And the Browns had over 12 minutes more time of possession. Do you think the guys were tired without those few extra days of rest from playing the Patriots, who did the same exact thing at the end of that game to close it out? Yeah, they're struggling. But it goes back once again. If the offense can hold the ball and sustain maybe a 6-minute drive instead of a 3 and out, their defense is more fresh, and it keeps the Patriots and keeps the Browns from getting possession of the football and being able to do what they ended up what they want to do at will, winning in the trenches.
Yeah.
I think they will be okay. But again, it starts at the top. The most important position on the field is quarterback. I don't care what coach you could exhume the remains of like Vince Lombardi and bring him out there, and it's not going to make a hill of beans difference. I think with Mitch, I know I've sounded like a Mitch hater. I don't hate the guy. And if he listened to all this, I probably wouldn't be on his Christmas card list because I've been more than overly critical of him. But you got to make a change. If you want Mitch to be the next Charlie Batch and be a backup and come in a pinch and run some things and play it safe and not lose you games, 1 or 2 games during the season, I think that is a great spot for him. However, leading an NFL team, Mariota I don't like at all, but at least he had most of his success with Arthur Smith, and he hasn't gotten injured yet, and that's the reason why the Falcons, a team with far less talent, has been competitive. They also play in a worse division, but that's a whole other aside. I just look ahead at this schedule, and I'd rather get Kenny some reps. And if he's playing some reps against maybe some tougher teams, why do you have to give everything easy to him and make excuses and say, well, the offensive line is never going to be perfect? And I had the argument with Brian, even when the Steelers line was a top flight unit in the NFL, they had 2 undrafted dudes as starters. Yeah. So it doesn't not every single guy is going to be a first round pick. Blue chipper that's a potential Hall of Famer.
And Kenny's not even this like 1-year wonder, this guy who was handed anything like coming out of school. He was a 5-year like college player and like got better and better each year. He's a tough kid. He's earned this, and he's taken a unique path to becoming a first round pick, and he's getting coddled by certain coaches and some fans as this like untouchable bubble boy. And it's like, dude, he's a Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback. He's gonna be on the field eventually, whether you like it or not, whether it scares you or not. You have to get him out there so you can at least worst case scenario find out he's not the guy. Best case scenario, salvage the season and have some kind of life left in these games we have left.
Yeah, I'm there with you. And just to point it out, 52 games started in college for Kenny Pickett versus Mitch Trubisky, 31. Far more experience. He's only a 5-year college player versus a 3-year college player, a little more seasoned. And the guy, if this were, even if it were Mason making the same mistakes, it could still make the argument that, hey, he only had 10 starts coming into the season. He's got 13 starts overall if he started the last 3 games. Same thing with Kenny. He hasn't taken any NFL snaps. We are now at 53 NFL starts for Mitchell Trubisky and probably over 50 now, or 49 maybe with, I'd have to see. I'm sure he's attempted more than 20 passes in each of the last 3 games. I think that's more than plenty of enough experience to know as to whether or not he can get it done. And it's not getting done. And you see something similar down in Charlotte, down with the Carolina Panthers and Baker Mayfield, and it makes you wonder if Baker was the problem or not, or if it's the coaching there or whatever. But you've got at least enough of a history with the Pittsburgh Steelers and with Mike Tomlin, and you've seen what can be done outside with a different quarterback, with a Ben Roethlisberger. It wasn't all great, but there's a team that's up against the salary cap and everything else. There's so much more that we can't cover. We're up against it with that. But you can't make the comparisons of last year to this year. I don't think it's fair, and I really do think you will see a difference. I mean, and it doesn't necessarily, like you said, translate to gobs of wins. But this could be something where if a team puts 30 points on them, they're right behind them with 28, and they're at least sparking some life, and they're staying in it. And those are building blocks to having a successful program. Josh Allen didn't come right out the gate and put the Buffalo Bills straight into contention. Sort of, kind of in a way, but no, not really. If you take a look, he's really starting to hit his stride right now, mature, and be at the peak of his career. Last season, this season, 4 or 5 years into the NFL, and that's kind of the experience you have to give somebody to know as to whether or not they can or can't make it. Guys like Mitch Trubisky and Daniel Jones, I think the end of their story is being written, and the book's about to be closed, and they're gonna float around as backups wherever that may be. So, Zach, Mitch Trubisky show. Yep. Mitch Trubisky haters. I just don't know. I can't find anything positive. I can't find anything positive or anything that would suggest. I'm being stat whore here. I can't find anything to suggest that it's going to change. And I don't even think if you threw Matt Canada out there that it's going to change either. He's got to be able to see the field. He's got to be able to throw in the middle. Everything's to the sidelines or everything's happy feet. It's time. It's time. Kenny and the Jets, baby.
Writing's on the wall.
Writing on the wall. Well, folks, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to check out No House Advantage and use the promo code Steel City. Check out some of those prop bets. We'll be back at you later this week with even more content as the Steelers look to host the New York Jets, maybe turn this around, get back to 500 ball. Till next time, my name's Joe. His name's Zach. As always, we encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.